And we are live, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the members of the panel this morning, as well as the secretary to the board and the assessor. Joining me by Zoom is Jerry Arnell and Diane Knight. I am chairing this morning's meeting. My name is Mike Colatruglio. From the assessment department, we have Rodney Pontanilla, and from the administrative personnel, we have Francis Villanueva. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along the City of Winnipeg's Border Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing applications for the revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 2 through 8 on the docket today. Mr. Villanueva, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Okay, Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Roddy Pontanilla.
Thank you. And do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, can you please state your full name? Okay, we are back on line, Mr. Chair.
All right, we apparently have sorted out our technical issues. So if we could have
Yep, there.
Mr. Newman back and the assessor.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can see you, and I'll put Mark back up too.
Yeah, he should be here. There.
There we go. All right, Mr. Pontnia, could you,
Did you want me to restart again from the start if the audio was off, or should I just continue where I left off? Maybe for the record, I could restart
maybe
it.
we should read it from the beginning just in case.
Just for the record, okay.
Yeah, just, go through it quickly.
Yep,
Thank
yep, I
you.
will. Okay, so if I can redirect you guys back to page 1, I'll start over again. Once again, file number 26-2506. The roll number is 13001435000. The address is 1320 Ellis Avenue. The 2027 assessment has gone out at 15,692,000. We do have this property listed as a neighborhood shopping center. Total land area is 279,419 square feet. And the total leasable area is 69,584 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included an overhead view of the subject property. Following that, I have a north-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I do have some Google Street View images of the subject property. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have some information on sales. They were both from 2000. The first one could have no weight put on it. And the second one, we have a sale there for 6,325,000. For rent comparables, I have included rent comparables that are all designated as neighborhood shopping centers or as neighborhood shopping center. They are all from within the same market region as the subject property. And I do have a list of various uses for the comps from retail to some sit-down restaurant. Following that, I do have the valuation for the subject property. So we do have it listed as a neighborhood shopping center, and we have, it looks like 8 premises on the income stream. The premises range from areas from 1,270 square feet at the lower end to 25,015 square feet at the higher end, for a total of 69,584 square feet. The rents range from looks to be $13.12 at the lower end to $32.25 at the higher end. These are all modeled rents. And that does give us a total potential rent of $1,111,392. Which, if you do the math on it, with the total area of 69,584 square feet, gives us a blended rental rate applied to the property of $15.97. And then from there, we do go through the rest of the income stream. We have the model vacancy of 4%. We do have an expense rate of 3% and a shortfall of $11 per square foot applied, which gives us a net operating income of $1,004,311. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate of 6.4% applied, which brings us to our assessed value of $15,692,000. Following that, we do have a summary of the information which I just provided. And then we come to our capitalization rates. So for the subject, we do have retail. We do have a list of cap rate ranges between the 20th and the 80th percentile. For a neighborhood shopping center, you'd see it in the middle. That'd be the middle column. And we do have 5.7% for the 20th to 6.4% for the 80th percentile, which the subject is at the 6.4. And then we also have external cap rate information as well. Following that, we do have Municipal Assessment Act excerpts in regards to the process. And then following that and taking us to the end of my brief is the 2024 income and expense mailer, which lists the income and expense information for the subject property. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Newman, do you have questions of the assessor? You're muted, sir.
I get confused by that because I always thought the muting was controlled at your end, but thank you. I'll try and do better. Good morning, Mr. Pontanilla.
Good morning, Mr. Neiman.
Have you by chance inspected this property?
I have not physically inspected it, but I've done the work here at the office to get an understanding of the subject property.
All right. And as part of that, doing the work at the office to get an understanding,
Yep.
Have you looked at the history of the property? In particular, have you looked at history of vacancy?
Not historical vacancy. No, I haven't taken a look at that.
Okay, thank you. So let's jump ahead to your page 5 and then on to page 6. So on these pages, you're showing the various buildings on the site, correct?
Correct.
And on page 5 in the lower half, you can see the signage for what's called Planet Fitness.
Yep.
You understand that to be a gym?
Yes.
And you understand that that's the space that was previously occupied by the Winners?
Yes, I do.
And that's about 25,000 square feet.
Yep.
And Winners went across the street to what was formerly the Target space. Is that correct?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I can go with your word on it that that's where they would have
All
moved.
right. And similarly, when you look at the other photos in the upper half of page 5, there's another photo of Planet Fitness from a different perspective. Turning the page, we can see in the lower photo, there's the Once Upon a Child premises.
Correct.
And what you're seeing in the peaked roof area of many of these buildings and onto page 7 in the upper photo is you're seeing the signage for the store that's occupying the premises.
Yep.
And the lower half of page 6, there's no sign there. To your knowledge, is that because that was vacant space?
Possibly it could have been at the time.
Okay.
To my knowledge, yep.
Do you know that that was the space previously occupied by the store called Yisk, JSYK?
Yep, I believe so. Yeah, my memory serves correct. That's correct.
All right. And that's about 16,875 square feet, correct?
Correct.
And this shopping center totals 69,584 square feet, correct?
Correct.
So that's near to 25%, correct?
Approximately, yep.
All right. Then moving on to page 10 and 11, those are your comparables. And I won't spend a lot of time on that. I'll just note the ones at 3653 Portage, 3647 Portage, those are all Unicity Mall, correct?
The address looks to be, yes, correct.
Right. And Unicity Mall is a power center, correct?
I don't have that information in front of me to know the exact designation, but I'll go with your word on it. Yeah, that would make sense that it would be a power center.
And just so the board understands, power centers typically have large anchors, a Walmart, a grocery store, a Canadian Tire, but they have large stores located at them, correct?
Correct.
All right. And Unicity has a Walmart, a Canadian Tire, a Sobeys, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and many of your other comparables, the ones on page 11, three of them are on St. James, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then let's jump ahead. Page 12, that's the model calculation of the value, correct?
Yes, sir. It's all model.
All model. All right. And it uses a vacancy of 4%. Again, that's model.
Yep, model vacancy.
But the questionnaire indicates the vacancy was 25%, correct?
Yes, based on the area, correct.
Right. Okay. And then the capitalization rate, well, let's leave that for a moment. We'll get to that in a moment. So now let's go to your page 14. That's your capitalization rate page. So you know that the chart, and it's all different types of property, but let's focus on the retail.
Sure.
What it does is it reflects what the brokers are indicating the rates are for the types of property, correct?
Correct.
And it reflects what the city says the 20th and 80th percentiles are.
Correct.
And to be clear, the city's 20th and 80th percentiles, those are calculated based on model rents.
There are some other inputs that go in, but that could be said.
And that's a fair comment. And when you say other inputs, all the inputs that go into the calculation, I believe they're obtained through the model, the vacancy, the rents, the shortfall. So those 20th and 80th percentiles are completely and entirely model driven.
From my understanding, with the aggregated data, but yes, those are model driven.
Okay, one other question about this chart insofar as it relates to retail.
Sure.
Have you ever compared it to the actual charts the brokers present in their materials?
I myself haven't, no.
Okay. Do you know that so on this chart, power center and neighborhood are combined into one?
Yes.
Do you know that that's not how the brokers present it?
I would be unaware of that.
All right, thank you. So let's jump ahead then. Let's go to your page 16. Now we're in the actual questionnaire. And as we can see in the right-hand column, it reflects a 25% vacancy. There's $18,688 in the middle column called a land lease. Do you know what that's for?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, if I said to you the shopping center doesn't have enough parking and it rents a railway right of way at the back of the property.
Oh, okay.
Any of that ring a bell?
Yeah, it does actually a little bit. Yep.
All right. Then you see there's parking revenue of $115,000 in the left-hand column. Any idea what that's from?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, if I told you it was from the adjacent hotel that used to rent parking from this property, but it ended with the end of the 2024 year. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
All right. And then if we go to, well, actually, we don't need to. All right. So I think those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Pontanilla.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Ms. Knight, questions of the assessor?
I do not.
Thank you. And Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you very much. And I don't think I have any further questions at this time. So, Mr. Newman, can we have your submission on this property, please?
You can. And I'll start by giving you an overview of where I'm going to go. So there's three issues in this case: the gross potential income, the vacancy, and ultimately the capitalization rate. This is what I would term a secondary quality property, in the sense that locationally it's not on St. James, it's on the corner of Ellis and Empress, and from that perspective, it's got lesser visibility from traffic. The tenants are not what I would call A-class tenants, and I'll tell you some stories about that in a moment. The 2025 value of $14,026,000 included $115,000 of revenue from the adjacent hotel. That revenue is no longer there. So the property is poorer from that perspective in terms of the revenue it receives and obtains from occupants of the property. Additionally, the other thing that's different compared to 2025, which had, of course, a value date of April 1 of 23, is we now have persistent vacancy at the level of 25%, which I'll discuss with you further. So on page 2 of my presentation, I tell you that the property's in more difficult circumstances by a vacancy at April 1 of 25 compared to April 1 of 23. I tell you that interest rates were higher at April 1 of 25 than they were at 23. Parking is leased from the adjacent railway at the rear of the property, and they pay $18,688 per year to secure that parking. So certainly from a quality of property and adequacy of parking, this property is not a grade A property because it has to rent additional property. So the assessor's value is driven by an average rent of $15.97 a square foot, with a capitalization rate of 6.4%. Page 3 of my brief reproduces the assessor calculation. And then I start to talk about turnover. So Winners occupied 25,000 square feet. The lease expired February of 21. It vacated the space and went across the street to the former Target premises. And the landlord found Planet Fitness at a rent of $11.50 a square foot for this area. The assessor has a somewhat higher rent. A gym is not prime retail. It's not retail that's complementary to the other merchants on the site, in the sense that it's not going to draw additional traffic that the other merchants can benefit from. Yisk on page 4 occupied 16,875 square feet. Their lease expired July 14 of 21. It was extended on an interim basis to February of 23 because Yisk had acquired different premises at 1030 Empress, previously occupied by the Salvation Army. They were allowed to vacate on, the landlord was given the ability to get them out on 90 days notice. The tenant eventually did vacate the space effective May 31 of 23. Because it was known going back to 2020 that they were going to depart because they had bought a building, the marketing of the space began in 2020, and at April 1 of 25, the space remained vacant. So it was vacant from May of 23 through to April 1 of 25, and that is 16,875 square feet. And that's why it's about, round numbers, 25% vacant, and was for approximately 2 years. The Reitman space at one time was 12,554 square feet. Reitman's went under Companies Creditors Arrangements Act, which is a form of, it's not bankruptcy exactly, but it's a way in which companies can try and bring themselves out of their difficult financial circumstances. The net result was that they cut their space in half. And so then ultimately they stayed on at a rate of $18 a square foot, but that's because they cut their space in half. So collectively, these tenants, between the Winners gym tenant, between the 16,000 square feet that Yisk occupied, and between the Reitman 6,500 square feet, it's approximately 48,000 square feet that they occupy. Winners and Yisk occupying 41,890 square feet, more than 50% of the space have turned over and have left. In relative terms, the visibility is inferior for this property, I would suggest, and the turnover of these tenants has been significant. and it reflects the precarious state of retail. So we move on to page 5. I list the issues there for you. I've got a typo. I say the assessor's gross potential income is $1,079,000. That's not correct. It's $1,111,000. The Garbanzo space, it's a non-arm's length lease. It was put in place because they couldn't lease the space. And I suggest ultimately a rent of $18 a square foot is more appropriate. To be clear, the assessor's rent on the Garbanzo space is $19.59. So that's one of the differences we have in terms of our gross potential rent ultimately. And there's a group of comparables that I've utilized in the immediate area to secure and come to the rent. Then vacancy, 4%, 16,875 square feet become vacant at June 1 of 23. There's been lots of turnover. That's 24.25% of the space, which persists for 22 months. I ultimately select 8%. I don't go up to 25%. I select a conservative 8% as representing the vacancy for the space in light of the fact that approximately 25% has been vacant for almost 2 years by the time we get to April 1 of 2025, which any buyer will be greatly concerned with, I will suggest to you. To be noted, the St. James area, I'm on page 6 now, has had difficulties leasing retail space for a number of years. The Target building, they couldn't lease a big portion to retail. They leased it to a call center. And the reality is the great majority of that site, the former stadium site, remains undeveloped a decade after Target opened and failed. A significant portion of the former Sears space at Polo Park, also occupied by a call center and not retail. There was lingering vacancy in wholesale sporting goods, 33,000 square feet. Cadillac Fairview intended to do lots on the former stadium site, and they're not doing anything now. It's up for sale. So all of this is my way of saying to you, vacancy is an issue on this property. And both vacancy and capitalization rate should take that into account. And I'll summarize that at the end. Now I'm going to speak about capitalization rates, and I will tell you now, I'm going to give you a reasonably in-depth presentation. I won't repeat it on our second hearing in the hope that you'll simply absorb it and utilize it for the benefit of that hearing. So what's a capitalization rate? Bottom of page 6. It's the required or acceptable rate of return on real estate investment. It's influenced by the risk associated with the property, investor expectations, and returns available in other types of property. High turnover means it's less than A, means it's less than or has a higher risk, which ultimately yields a higher capitalization rate. Some macroeconomic factors on page 7. Interest rates. Interest rates went up, although they came down a little bit. By the time we got to March 2025, interest rates were much higher than they were at April 1 of 2023. This was reflected in the level of economic activity that was ongoing in the marketplace. Here's a chart published by Altus Group, and you can see the dollar volume and number of trades. Dollar volume is down, a number of trades is down. The real estate market was suffering somewhat compared to prior years because of what was going on. Page 8, and remember, these are macroeconomic factors. Tariffs and inflation. Emerging in Q1 of 25 is the U.S. administration's pro-tariff policies and the threat of a trade war. All of that creates uncertainty in the marketplace, and it adds to inflationary pressures. The Canadian government announced new immigration policies, significantly slowing down immigration. When you slow immigration, you slow the number of consumers who come into the marketplace, you slow consumption, that has an impact. Mortgage rates, they were higher at Q1 of 2025, and that creates a problem. You can see onto page 9 a mortgage chart reflecting the relationship between mortgage rates and Government of Canada bonds. On to page 10, there's information about the spread at the top chart between Government of Canada 10-year bond yields and commercial mortgage rates, and the spread is high. In the lower chart, again, the Government of Canada 10-year bond yield. So all of these have impact on the marketplace. They have impact on the fluidity and frequency with which the market operates. And then if we jump to page 11, at the bottom, the retail environment, uncertainty is prevalent, consumer confidence is in decline amid inflation and tariff threats. And there's some commentary on these factors and the extent to which inflation grew rapidly, and business insolvencies onto page 12 now surged significantly. And I told you earlier about Reitman's, and they're going under the Creditors or Company Creditors Arrangement Act, and ultimately they downsized. So retailers are having a difficult time. Consumer confidence is low. It's low, says the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, because of the impacts of inflation and the unprecedented rise in interest rates. Page 13, the onset of the tariff war. We're all familiar with what's gone on, but it was starting in that time frame, and again, it was creating uncertainty. So now let's go micro, and let's go to the Winnipeg marketplace, and let's go to capitalization rates. Page 14, the assessor's at 6.4%. I say that's too low. So now I want to talk about the different types of properties that the brokers recognize. So at page 15, Cushman recognizes a number of types of properties. They recognize what's called a strip anchored, frequently occupied by a food or drug store anchor. This property has neither of those as an anchor, so it's not a strip plaza anchored. Strip plaza non-anchored. And here we start to get into subtle distinctions based on size. Some brokers might call the subject a strip plaza non-anchored. Other brokers might call it a community commercial center because it's intended to serve a broader area. And this one does, obviously. It doesn't have a grocery store, though, so that makes it a little different. Cushman puts the rate, and their rates are actually pretty consistent. It's 6.5 to 7.5. They don't have a 7.4, obviously, a 6.4, but the range is 6.5 to 7.5. And obviously, what's important is where you put a specific property into that range. CBRE, they talk about community neighborhood shopping centers being enclosed or unenclosed, generally anchored by a junior department store, supermarket, drug, or sports store. You can see that CBRE puts the rates on a neighborhood at 7 to 7.25%. But I want you to also notice that CBRE has a power center at 6.5 to 7.5. And remember, I asked the assessor the question about the chart and the fact that what the city does is they put categories together on their chart. They combine power and neighborhood, but that's not what the brokers do. The brokers separate what might be called the power and neighborhood, and also what might be called the grocery or community. So CBRE, 7 to 7.5, and the strips are lower. Then Colliers, they talk about what they call a grocery or community center. Again, frequently it's got an anchor in the form of a grocery store or a drugstore. Can also have big box, those big square stores from national retailers. Neighborhood tends to be smaller to mid-size, unenclosed, intended for convenient shopping for the surrounding neighborhood. And these are often anchored by smaller supermarkets or drugstores. Subject doesn't have either of those. And you can see that Colliers at the top of 17, they separate the rates between regional and power, then grocery and community, then neighborhood and strip. And again, the neighborhood strip is 6.25 to 7.25. And the grocery community is 6.5 to 7.5. And of course, the key is putting the property in the proper place within its range. I reproduced on the lower part of 17 the charts for 23, 25, and 27, only because I wanted to show you that starting in 25, the city combined the power center and the neighborhood. Previously, they didn't do that. Previously, they kept them separate and reported rates for them separately. They've continued the combination of those. Power centers frequently bring with them lower rates. And so when you combine, because power centers have national retailers, they've got the Walmarts, they've got the Canadian Tires, but they've got national and international retailers. The subject clearly doesn't have those big anchor retailers. And then at the top of 18, I summarize the rates from the various brokers. And again, you can see that Colliers frequently has lower rates. And again, I think you've heard this many times over the years. Colliers includes the closing costs in their calculation of cap rate, land transfer tax, commission, and the effect of doing that is to reduce capitalization rates by about 25 basis points. That is well known. The board has heard evidence many times over the years about that. And so the Colliers rates, in my opinion, have to be looked at carefully from that perspective. I've heard them described as a marketing tool to bring in customers who will rely on these low rates, anticipating if they list, they're going to get a higher price because of a lower capitalization rate on the sale of their property. Then Ryan has published a study on capitalization rates. And if you go to the top of page 19, there's a chart that Ryan has published. And I then provide a little bit of commentary and detail about these properties. Comparable number 1 is at 1425 Ellis. It's the Lazy Boy Furniture. A little bit dated, I will admit, but 23,000 square feet with a 7.71% capitalization rate. Many of them are smaller, but also many of them are larger. And then I would draw your attention to number 5. Number 5 is the shopping center known as Pembina Crossing. It's got a big save on foods. It's a 280,000 square foot property. But what's most interesting about it from my perspective is it has a 25-year lease for an office building with Winnipeg Regional Health, who operate an access center there. And you can appreciate any buyer who's getting a 25-year government lease as part of a purchase will be comforted by that, and it will lead arguably to a lower capitalization rate. And the capitalization rate there was 6.87%, even with the benefit of that 25-year government lease. Also, I would draw your attention in particular to number 7, and number 7 is 1300 Ellis. It's a couple of blocks east along Ellis. And it's immediately across the tracks that are behind the subject property on the south side of Ellis. And it's a big property with a Dollarama, an Aaron's, a liquidation super center, 121,000 square feet with a 7.27% capitalization rate. So if we then continue onto the top of the next page, you see the commentary by Ryan that they would categorize retail top quality, which brings with it a lower risk profile in the range of 6.5 to 7, a standard quality at 7 to 7.5%, and a low quality with a higher risk profile at 7.5 to 8.5. And in their view, top quality assets typically would have a grocery or drugstore anchored element to them. So ultimately, let's jump ahead to page 21. I talk here about attributes of buildings because, again, you have to look at all the components of a property. These things they will include the quality of the tenants. Are they national? Are they small, local? Is there a drugstore? Is there a grocery store anchor? The subject obviously doesn't have that. Location. Is it in a prime site? Is it in a less visible site? I would suggest the subject is slightly less visible than many of the comparables the assessor has used. The quality of the site, the quality of the development. This property, from a quality of development perspective, as the assessor noted, much of it was built in 1959. And yes, it has an updated effective age, but certainly most of it is an older property. Visibility I've talked about. So, do these poor quality tenants, I'm on to 22 now, do they bring the potential for upside, increase in rent? I will suggest it will be limited. So on 22, under the heading subject property, I then talk about the fact that, in my opinion, it's not a strip. It's a neighborhood or community, and that it serves an area other than simply a local neighborhood. This would put it in the range of 6.5 to 7.5 based on broker reporting. Based on Ryan publication, it would go at the 7 to 7.5. For standard quality real estate, low quality would go higher still. The assessor uses 6.4%. And so on page 23, I again mentioned some of the comparables I talked about before. So if we jump ahead then to the rents, and in this regard, I'll ask you to just jump ahead for a moment to page 26. Page 26 is my spreadsheet. I have used actual rents in place, with the exception of Garbanzo's, which is a non-arm's length lease, which I put in at $18, as I explained earlier, and the assessor is at $19.59. There's 16,875 square feet vacant, which is a large space. I put that in at $12. And so at the end of the day, my rents, creating the $1,039,299 GPI, average $14.93. The assessor's at $1,111,000. So there's a difference of about $72,000 between us. And that's because the assessor is at a higher rate on a couple of the tenants, but primarily it's on the Planet Fitness, where there's a difference in rate that creates a significant issue. The assessor's at $13.12, and I'm at $11.50. So again, there's a significant difference there in terms of the rent. While I'm here, I'll just keep going for a moment. 8% on the vacancy. So remember, you've got 16,875 square feet vacant from May of 2023 through to April of 2025, 22 months. I've made what I consider to be a modest adjustment to the vacancy, increasing it to 8%. Shortfall is the same. Non-recoverable is the same at 3%. And I ultimately set the capitalization rate at 7%, and that drives a value of $12,374,000. And I just want to say again, as I said earlier, the property is significantly different at April 1 of 25 than it was at April 1 of 23 because it has lost the income stream for parking from the adjacent hotel, and it now has a vacancy approximating 25%, which it did not have at April 1 of 2023. So, and let me just finish so I don't jump you around too much. Look at page 27. There's a site plan, and you can see the vacant 16,875 square feet. Look at page 28. You can see some photos. You can actually see in the top photo the YISC sign, as I suggested to the assessor, which in a later photo isn't there because they were vacant. And then the questionnaire at page 30. So as I asked of the assessor, there's the $115,000 of revenue that's now gone because the adjacent hotel no longer requires parking. And there's the additional expense of $18,688 to rent parking because there's not enough on the site. So let's come back then, please, to page 24. So the gross potential income is $1,039,299 compared to the assessor's $1,111,000. And actual rents in place, $18 on garbanzos, and the vacant space gets a rate of 12. The vacancy, as I've said, it's adjusted slightly to 8% from 4% in light of the vacancy of almost 25% over 22 months. And then on the capitalization rate, as I've said, looking at the Ryan analysis, looking at the charts from the brokers, I don't think the rate is 6.4%. I think it has to come up. This is what I would call standard quality real estate. It's not top quality, not drug or grocery store anchored. Therefore, standard quality in the range of 7 to 7.5%. I've put it at 7%. And that, as I've discussed, brings a value of $12,375,000. Subject to questions, that's my submission. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Pontonia, would you like to ask questions of Mr. Newman at this point, please?
I just wanted to explore the vacancy a little bit, if that's okay. So Mr. Newman, I just wanted to confirm in 2023, the tenant had moved out, correct?
Yes. End of May of 23.
Okay. And then the vacancy was continuing on through the period of the 22 months up to April 1st, 2025. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then currently, are you aware of any current lease that's in place, or are you not aware of the current situation with the subject property? And I only ask that because of the chronic nature of the vacancy, just to explore that a little bit.
So I'm not aware of the terms of any current lease.
Okay.
But certainly the buyer at April 1 of 25 would have been faced with that vacancy.
Yep. No, that's not disputed in terms of the economic reference period. Okay. That's all I really wanted to explore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, any questions at this point?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight? Oh, you're muted.
I was blowing my nose earlier, sorry. I had questions about the vacancy, but that's cleared up now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those are your questions then, yes?
Yeah.
Good. Mr. Newman, I just want to quickly touch on a couple of things. You had said that you used the actual rents for your calculation of effective gross income, correct?
With the exception of garbanzos, which
With the
is
exception of garbanzos, yes.
and setting the vacant space at $12.
Okay. And would that vacant space would have been greater than that, I'm assuming, prior to them leaving? What would have been the market for that? Would it have been 13 or so dollars on that, sir, or not? Do you recall?
If you're asking me what was Yisk paying before they left, I don't recall the answer to that. And my thought was that, again, because the retail market has softened, and because they, they were able to put a Planet Fitness in at $11.50 a square foot. So I thought for the slightly smaller space, I would go with a slightly lesser rate, and that's sorry, slightly higher rate, and that's how I arrived at the rate for the vacancy at $12.
All right. Ultimately, your gross income versus the assessors are, well, as you said, about 70 odd $1,000 difference.
That's
And,
correct.
your cap rates are 6.4 to 7%, so not an incredibly great chasm between the both of you. And it appears that from the outside sources, at least, you've got everything from 6.25 up to 7.5 as a range from the outside sources. You'd agree with me on that, right?
So I do agree with you, but again, I'd caution only in the sense that the 6.25s are coming only from Colliers, and they're coming from what they call a neighborhood or a strip. And again, I appreciate that the different brokers have slightly different terminology, and that's why it's important to understand what is the property. And I would say to you, this isn't a neighborhood that primarily serves a local neighborhood. It's clearly not a strip. And again, I remind you of what I said earlier about Colliers and the inclusion of closing costs, which tends to bring their rates down. And I also point to the Ryan comparables and the specific ones I mentioned for transactions as being indicative of what rates should be. So I don't go over the top, I'll say to you, in the sense of cap rate. I think I'm reasonably conservative. But the property is certainly different than it was at April 1 of 23. And the retail marketplace, I think, has gotten somewhat poorer at April 1 of 25 than it was prior.
I'll agree with you. You're not being overly aggressive.
Yeah.
All right. Those are my questions for the moment. Do either party want have a summation at this point, or have we covered most of what we need to talk about?
No summation on my part, Mr. Chair.
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Very well. We will move on to the next item then.
Excuse me, before we do, can I just go get a Kleenex, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll be right back.
Sorry, show you back. We'll just quickly take a quick recess, guys. Or
Okay.
I'm back.
Miss Knight is back. All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to item number 3, being 710 St. Anne's Road. Mr. Pontinia, would you like to give us your presentation, please?
I can, Mr. Chair, thank you. So up next, we have file 26-2513. The roll number is 0802 103 8500. The address is 710 St. Anne's Road. The 2027 assessment has gone out at $26,472,000. Once again, this is a neighborhood shopping center. We have 5 buildings associated with the subject and 24 premises, and it's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 2005 and 2008 with an effective year built of 2005 and 2008. The land area we have listed as 324,232 square feet. And the total leasable area we have is 70,481 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included an overhead view of the subject property. And following that, I have a north-facing view and a east-facing view of the subject property. And following that, I have included some Google Street View images from the 2023 map overlay of the subject property. And there's several pictures in there for you guys to look at, just showing the various tenants. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have some property leases that we have on record, so those ones are currently being displayed. We can see that we have a range in total area. That's actually 2 pages. So the following 2 pages have information. And we have ranges in area from approximately 1,215, or actually 728 square feet at the lower end, up to 10,802 square feet at the higher end. And then we have leases ranging from $21, it looks like at the lower end, up to around $40, I guess, at the higher end. From there, I have included some rent comparables. These rent comparables are from within the market region, the same market region as the subject property, and they are listed as neighborhood shopping centers. And so we have a list of leases there. And the areas range in the comparables from, I want to say around 800 square feet at the lower end and going up to, looks to be about 6,000 square feet at the higher end. And then we have rents that range from, looks to be $20 at the lower end and then going up to around $30 at the higher end. From there, we do have the subject's income stream. So as previously mentioned, there are 24 premises on the subject's income stream. The areas range from 728 square feet at the lower end up to 16,815 square feet at the higher end, bringing us to a total area of 70,481 square feet. The rents that we have are all model-driven rents, and they range from, it looks to be $19 at the lower end, up to about 32. Oh, actually, we have one at $40 at the higher end. All model rents. And that gives us a total potential rent of $1,738,945, which when we plug the numbers in, we get a blended rental rate applied to the subject of $24.67 per square foot blended. And then from there, we go into the rest of the income stream. So we have a model vacancy of 4%. And then we have a 3% expense and an $11 shortfall per square foot. And that brings us to a net operating income of 1,588,293. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate of 6%, which brings us to the total assessed value of $26,472,000. Following that, I do have an income value summary of the information which I just provided. And then following that, I've included the cap rate information that we include in our briefs. Following that, I do have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then following that and finishing us off in the brief is the 2024 income and expense mailer. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Newman, questions at this time, sir?
A very few. Your comparables on page 11
Yep.
And continuing on to 12, fundamentally, those are the shopping centers that surround the St. Vital Mall, correct?
Fundamentally, yes, they are within the market region, but yep.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And the calculation summary on page 15, the entirety of that is model driven, correct?
Yes, yes, sir. All model driven.
And then the cap rate chart on page 16, as we discussed in the last one. And I just want to read something to you above the chart, the last paragraph above the chart. The following chart compares ATD capitalization rates with published rates by fitting ATD's rates into the property type categories used in these reports. So, and again, I come back to the fact that if we look at retail, power center, neighborhood are combined. And as we've discussed and reviewed, that's not how the brokers report it, correct?
Correct.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Knight? Muted?
Sorry. I have no questions. Thank you.
And Mr. Arnell, any questions at this time?
Not at this time, thanks.
All right, and I don't believe I have any questions either at this time. Mr. Newman, apparently you're up, sir.
Okay, so page 1 of the brief, it's just a summary and a recitation or a copy of the assessor's calculation. If we go on to page 2, you can see that the only thing I'm challenging here is the capitalization rate. So, and I will summarize, I won't be as lengthy as I was on the last one. So again, I start the lower half of page 3. What are capitalization rates? They're the required return by investors. I give you the macroeconomic factors as I did previously: tariffs, interest rates, immigration, mortgage rates. All of those are relevant factors in determining where we are. Page 8, the retail environment. Uncertainty is prevalent. Consumer confidence is in decline amid inflation and new tariff threats. Page 9, Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Consumer confidence is low. 2 causes: impacts of inflation and the rise in interest rates. Onset of the tariff war, lower half of page 9. Page 10, Hudson Bay Company goes into creditor protection, March of 25. All of those are macroeconomic factors. And this is a big shopping center at 70,000 odd square feet. It's a big purchase price. And so certainly that level of investor, it's not what I will call a ma and pa investor that's buying a small neighborhood strip. This is at a level that is much more sophisticated and will take into account both macro and micro criteria in making a decision. Okay, then turning to Winnipeg retail market capitalization rates, page 11. As I say, the assessor's at 6%. I think that's too low. I then go back to the brokers and what they say about different types of centers. So this shopping center does not have a grocery store. It does have a Shoppers Drug Mart. I acknowledge that. And is it a community commercial center? Is it a strip center? I guess that's going to depend on your definitions. You can see how at page 12, how Cushman are categorizing. And again, they're putting their rates at 6.5 to 7.5 as rates. CBRE, again, they've got what they call community neighborhood. They mention a combination of a junior department store, a supermarket, drug, or sports store. This one, again, has the drug. It doesn't have a supermarket. And again, CBRE puts a neighborhood at 7 to 7.25. They put strip, and I don't think this is a strip simply by virtue of its size. So I would say to you that in the CBRE criteria, it's a 7 to 7.25. Colliers, again, grocery or community center. Unenclosed centers with a community-oriented focus, products and services for daily needs. Anchors often include a supermarket, a drugstore, discount department store. So again, there is a drugstore, but there's none of the other things. And so Colliers, looking at the city's charts on page 14, Colliers puts a power center or neighborhood at 6.25 to 7.5. Again, it's the mixing of the rates, which is not how the brokers report it. And if you go to page 15, you'll see how Colliers puts a community at 6.5 to 7.5, CBRE at 7 to 7.25, and Cushman at 6.5 to 7.5. The same Ryan publication with respect to cap rates, and there's a variety of different rates to look at. Again, you can look at number 5, which is the Pembina Crossing one I referenced in the prior hearing, with the benefit of a government anchor for 25 years at 6.87% in February of 23. You can look at number 7, the Ellis property at 121,000 square feet in July of 23 at 7.27%. You can look at number 10 on St. Mary's Road. This is adjacent to the St. Vital Mall. This is smaller at 24,000 square feet, but it's got national tenants, a credit union, Original Joe's, Popeyes, Wendy's, at 7.18%. So if you then flip the page to 17, Ryan comments retail top quality, retail standard quality. This one would be somewhere I would suggest between retail standard and retail top. It's got a drug, but it doesn't have a grocery. Most of the occupants are local businesses. It's not national tenants at this site, primarily. Shoppers is, I acknowledge, but again, primarily it's national tenants. So if you jump ahead to page 19, it's a neighborhood or community, I suggest, that serves an area other than the local neighborhood and more broadly, the local community, 6.5 to 7.5 based on the broker reporting, 7 to 7.5 says Ryan for standard. And then I ultimately conclude 6.75%. I bring it in sort of in the middle of the range between what Ryan would call top quality and standard quality. And so ultimately, That's the difference between the assessor and I. It's the 6.75 cap as opposed to the 6% cap. Page 21, that drives a value of $23,530,000. And that's the value I'm asking the board to select. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Pondia, any questions at this point?
No questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Newman, just a couple things that I'd like to ask about. You mentioned there was no food, but yet the bulk barn exists there, does it not, sir?
Yes, but I didn't say no food. I said no grocery store.
No grocery store. Thank you for the distinction.
Yeah.
But along the same lines, we have a sporting goods place, Play It Again Sports. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right.
But
And,
wait. Let's be clear. Play It Again Sports is used sporting goods.
not all of it, though.
Okay, fair enough.
Not all of it, sir. And I agree with you. There is a component where they buy and sell. Absolutely.
Yep.
And then the other tenant that you've omitted is the Manitoba Liquor Control Commission,
Yes.
a government lease of 21 years. So I think you mentioned having a lease in another location, and being that that is a sought after thing by any investor standard, correct?
Yes.
All right, and would you agree with me that that would be certainly at 10,800 square feet, a fairly significant area in that particular development? Yes.
Approximately 14%. Yes.
Okay. All right, and you still feel the cap rate should be bumped up because of the fact that you feel that this doesn't have quite all the attributes that you think the outside sources seem to suggest?
Well, I would say to you more generally, here's the issue as I see it. The city, in their view, conflates power centers, and whether you call them neighborhood or community, they conflate them. They treat them essentially as one, but that's not what they are. This is not a power center. Power centers bring with them typically lower rates. I acknowledge that. But because the city is putting these two together, they're conflating the rates, and they're presenting what I would suggest is not a fair picture of what the subject is in the marketplace. So that's why I think the rate is not 6%. I think the rate is higher than 6%. I selected 6.75 for the reasons I articulated. And
Yeah.
again, I give you the comparables. Let's not forget the Pembina Crossing comparable, February of 23 sale with that 25-year government lease, occupying significant premises at a 6.87% rate.
Okay.
It's got a grocery store. It's got Save On, 45,000 square feet. It's got a bunch of big box retailers in it, including international chains. So to me, that's more of a power center, and it's got the benefit of that government lease at 6.87%. So I thought in selecting 6.75%, I was being quite reasonable.
I'm not completely throwing you under the bus on this one, Mr. Newman, of course, but
Thank you.
Just looking at the numbers are not a great deal apart. So those are my questions. Thank you very much.
All right.
Any final summation from either party?
No, have a nice day, everyone.
Yeah, no summation on my part. Have a nice day, Mr. Newman. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the next property. That being item number 4, 20 Lakewood Boulevard.
I'll let now.
And swear in Mr. Penner, or sorry, Mr. Reimer. Go ahead.
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Can everybody hear me? Sorry, I'm just jumping on here.
Yes.
You're good.
Perfect, thank you. Kerry Earl Freimer.
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Kerry Earl Freimer.
Thank you. And you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pandian, can we have your presentation on this, please?
Mr. Chairman, which property are we doing? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, sorry, 20 Lakewood Boulevard, that's item number 4.
Thank you.
Sorry, keep forgetting, you don't hear the initial.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me know whenever when to proceed, and I'll start.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so up next we have file 26-2792. The roll number is 0600-765-9400. The address is 20 Lakewood Boulevard. There are 2 components to this assessment which has gone out. We have one component listed as a classification 40 institutional property, which is exempt from liability, and that went out at $402,000 for assessed value. And then we have a 60 other taxable component, which went out at $11,584,000 for a total assessed value of $11,986,000. Once again, we are speaking of a neighborhood shopping center. We have 4 buildings associated and 10 premises associated with the subject property. It's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 1973 and 1993 with an effective year in place of 1976 and 1993. The total land area we have is 164,934 square feet. And the total leasable area we have is 42,912 square feet. The first image I've included is the pad eye view image of the subject property. Following that, I do have a pictometry overhead view of the subject property. And then following that, I have a north-facing view and an east-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I do have the Google Street View images of the subject property. We have several pictures there showing the different tenants. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have 3 leases on file for the subject property. The areas range from 1,165 square feet up to 8,087 square feet. And the rents range from $22 at the lower end to $26.53 at the higher end. For rent comparables, I have included rent comparables that are all listed as neighborhood shopping center leases. These are all from within the subject's market region. And we do have a list of different uses for the different comparables used. The areas range, we're looking from approximately 900 square feet, it looks like at the lower end, up to 9,687 square feet at the higher end. And we have rents that range from, it looks to be $19 at the lower end, and then up to approximately $34 it looks like at the higher end. Following that, I do have the income stream for the subject property. So this is all a model-driven income stream. We have 9 premises on the 60T taxable stream. And then we have areas that range from 376 square feet at the lower end, up to 12,194 square feet at the higher end. The total area is 41,523 square feet. The rents we have that we have on the income stream range from $18.11 at the lower end to $23.81 at the higher end, all model driven rents, which gives us a total potential applied for the 60T stream of $815,769. And if we divide that by the total area on the 60T, we do get a blended rate of $19.65. That's applied to the subject for the 60T stream. Following there, I do have the model parameters in place of a 4% vacancy applied, a 3% expense rate, and an $11 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $741,374. And then from there, we do have a modeled cap rate of 6.4% applied, which brings us to a total value of $11,584,000. Following that, we have income stream number 2, which is the 40 exempt stream. And we do have one premise on there for 1,389 square feet at $20.38 per square foot model. And then from there, we also go through the parameters for neighborhood shopping centers. So a 4% vacancy loss, 3% expense rate, and an $11 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $25,750. And then we have a 6.4% cap rate once again applied, which gives us a assessed value of $402,000. Following that, I do have a summary of the information provided, so we can see both streams, the 60T and the 40E, and then we see the summary in the left-hand column, which brings us to $11,986,000 for total assessed value. Following that, I do have the table of cap rate information that the City of Winnipeg provides in our briefs. Following that, I do have Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then following that and taking us to the end of the presentation, looks to be about the last 6 pages or so, is the 2024 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions at this time, Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And just as a note, I'll just have a couple of questions on capitalization rate that'll be common to all the matters. If we could, I could ask the board to carry forward the questions and also carry forward my evidence when I present my capitalization rate study to the remainder of the properties.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reimer. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Pontini, on page 1 initially then.
Yep.
So the actual year built was 73 to 93 with an effective year built of 76 to 93. Now the 1993 edition, there's a total area of gross area of 43,682. The 1993 edition was a very small component at only 2,484 square feet, correct?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I'll go on what you're providing. So
for sure, and I'll verify that later. Thank you. So now then, with the nearly all of the improvements being in the 1970s age, I had a couple of questions on your rent comparable chart on pages 9 to 10. We might turn there. So on page 9 specifically, the majority of the comparables, of course, are significantly newer between 2003 and 2020, it looks like. With the exception towards the middle of the page, there's 4, you listed 4 comparables at 50 Lakewood, which is obviously very, very close to the subject. Yep. Those would be closest both in proximity and in age, correct?
Correct.
And that ranges between $18.75 and $20 just for those 4?
$18.75 and $22, but yeah, basically.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry, I misspoke. $22.79. And then again, if we go to page 10, now these are significantly newer. The ones in vermilion, which are the middle block, newer age, but again, very close in geography. And that range from 1975 to 27.5, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Page 11, please. And you've alluded to this, just to be clear from top to bottom, it's all model-driven
Yes, sir.
parameters.
Yep.
Okay,
All
thank
my
you.
presentations will be modeled today, but yeah, this subject is model.
Thanks. Now, on the very last premise, on page 11, the 10,766, are you aware that that is actually an office space and not a retail space? It's office space occupied by Ladco?
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay. Then, and I'm going to be, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very succinct in my questions and comments, given the, I know that some of this stuff has been sort of heard before. Mr. Pantania, could we briefly turn to your page 14?
Yep.
So with respect to the capitalization rate, I'm going to paragraph 2 at the top of that page, and it states cap rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time adjusted. So that the department's cap rates that it's indicating in the summary chart below that, that is not based on the actual rents being achieved, pardon me, and the rents in place at the property, but rather strictly the model generated rents that were then used with the sale prices.
That looks to be correct.
Okay, and we can agree, again, I'm not going to belabor this because I know it's been brought up already, but we can agree that the department's ranges for at the upper and lower end for all three categories of the retail are significantly lower than all of the brokers that you list to the right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And now, just to be clear, and there's nothing really that turns on it, but the 40E space, that's the nonprofit daycare.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
And I don't, well, you know what? Mr. Pontiac, when you look at the cap rate study that the department's put through, and you see that it's model generated net operating income, correct?
Correct.
That generally tends to mean that not necessarily does the model match what the actuals are in a particular instance, does it?
That's correct.
So the model could be lower rent than the subject property actually attains.
It could
And could
potentially.
be
Yep.
understating the income. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yep, I'd say that's a fair statement.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Mr. Reimer, you're up,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Could we initially please go to my main brief that was filed for the property and let me know when you're there?
I'm there, so. Mr.
All right.
And Ms. Knight,
I'm good.
I'm good.
thank you.
Thank
Let's
you.
go on. Thank you.
So I'm going to initially I made the very brief point about the fact that this property essentially is a 1970s build with just the one exception. Could we please initially go to page 29, the very last page of my brief? And I just wanted to point out, because this does have an impact, I'd suggest, on rental rates and also capitalization rates to a degree. You can see there that this is the department's records as to the improvements at the site, and at the very bottom, section 4, that is the building addition of 2,484 square feet built in 1993, but the remainder, obviously the overwhelming majority of the property is a 1970s vintage building. So I just wanted to verify based on the question I had asked Mr. Pontinia earlier. Could we please go then to page 13? So on page 13, as you can see in the middle of the page, this is now for the taxable component, leaving aside the daycare for the moment. The rent, that potential market rent we've applied is $786,682. There is at unit 90, that's wee little area of 809 square feet. That is interior space that I'd suggest has extremely limited, if any, rental value. And also, as I had mentioned, the last two premises, the department's got it as one, which is entirely appropriate. That is Ladco's offices, and I've had an opportunity to be in them a couple of times, and certainly I would suggest that that would not fetch anywhere near the same revenue that the retail spaces at this center would be able to earn. And that's the reason why I applied the lower rental rate. It's average, I'd suggest, office space based on the last time I was in that space, and we've accordingly applied the lower market rents for that. On page 14 then, we have the rental comparables that range from $13 to $25 and reasonably consistent with Mr. Colatruglio's rental range, although as I indicated, certainly our position, and I'd suggest to this board that building age definitely has a significant impact on the rents that are able to be generated, and my comparables are indeed based on building ages that are typically in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, with a couple of exceptions. But the rental rate, as you'll see there on some of those buildings in the area on St. Mary's and St. Anne's, with the buildings of similar vintage, do tend to be in the $13 to $20 range. That again is consistent with the rental rates being generated, save and except for the office space, which is owner occupied, and I'm suggesting a lower market rent should be applied. So we have applied the rental rates as shown for the taxable component. We're using 4%, 11 shortfall, and 3% for the non-recovereds. Going then to page 15. Please, again, I'm going to be catching these as I go, but in all cases, in their capitalization rate, there's a reference to Altus Group. Could you please stroke that out and put Ryan? Ryan ULC Retail Capitalization Rate Study. Can let you know, Mr. Chairman, that reference will not be an issue in future hearings, but it will be this morning. So our range for standard quality properties is between 7 and 7.5%. And again, with the top quality, this isn't drug anchored or grocery store anchored or anything like that. The building vintage and being taken into consideration, we're suggesting in this case something in the middle of that range at 7.25%. So then turning to page 16, you can see there again our potential net market rent 786, 682, running it through with the parameters, including the 4% vacancy, and then applying the 7.25% cap rate comes in at a value for the taxable component of $9,852,000. On page 17 then, for the daycare, this is the 40 exempt component. We're applying the rent in place at $18.75 a foot and running that through using the very same parameters, including the 7.25 cap. And then that would put the 40E component at a recommended value of $326,000. Summarized on page 18 then, the entire property sort of put together in one chart. You can see there the total requested value is $10,178,000, consisting of the taxable component of $9,852,000 and the daycare exempt component of $326,000. I have attached to my attachments, and this will be common to all the briefs, the department's initial valuation that's under examination this morning, income and expense mailer, and that summary of the building details from the department's records. If we could then briefly move into the capitalization rate study, please. And again, Mr. Chairman, if yourself and the members might let me know when you're ready.
Good.
Well, you have the, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. So again, I'm not going to belabor this. I know Ms. Knight and Mr. Chairman yourself had heard the very same thing yesterday, so I'll be reasonably brief, subject to any questions that may arise from the panel today. If we could go initially to page 4 of the materials, and again, I just want to point out on page 4, we talk about the methodology to be used, and at the top of the page, there's a quote from the appraisal text, and this is very important. It says the appraisal must make certain that the NOI of each comparable property is calculated and estimated in the same way that the NOI for the subject is estimated. That does arise to the extent that if there's a rent in place that seems inordinately low or inordinately high, we're going to be making adjustments to appropriately reflect market which is also what we do in the case of valuing the subject and the other properties under examination. So that is a very important point. And the distinction there, Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest is, recall my question to Mr. Pontanilla, and it struck me as quite odd that the department's range, upper and lower range, would be that much different than the brokers. And my theory at this stage, and Mr. Chairman, you picked up on it, my theory is that some of the data would have been impacted by a model-driven and net operating income, and therefore the model-driven rents being generated that are pretty significantly understated. So I believe that to be the case. In any event, what we're doing, of course, in our study is to actually take a look at the rents in place, make sure they're consistent with market, and then apply the rest of the analysis to derive the cap rate. There are a number of pages starting after page 4 and going through actually to page 9. Actually page 10, sorry. There's some macroeconomic data again. On page 8, we have the chart with the bond rates and the mortgage rates. On page 9, we have the charts showing the spread between cap rates and the 10-year bond yields. Similarly, on the bottom of page 9, a similar chart. I'd like to then just focus in on some of the retail data that we believe was relevant as of the reference date. So on page 11, I do list some of the challenges that were apparent as of the reference date. Of course, the pandemic, the restrictions in earlier years had resulted in a pretty significant shift to online retailing through that period, and that I'd suggest that retail, that component of the online shopping, while it seems to have been reduced to some extent after the pandemic, it certainly is higher than it was pre-pandemic as people got more comfortable with that method. Inflation grew very, very rapidly. Bank of Canada rates had gone up very significantly in the earlier years. Had come down slightly, but were still very, very high relative to the low rates that had been in effect in the pandemic. And actually, it was interesting. The Toronto Star reported in 23 that the number of business insolvencies had increased. And that was also part of a trend that we had seen coming up to the reference date for this hearing of April 1, 25. Consumer confidence was demonstrably poor as of the reference date. On page 12, we have some of the charts and the commentary around consumer confidence, and the upshot of all of that: when consumer confidence is low because of a number of difficult economic factors, then of course discretionary spending will either go down or be avoided altogether because of the additional money that's needed for non-discretionary or items that you need on a daily basis: housing, food, gasoline, and such. Again, there's some more information on page 13. I'm going to leave it for the board to read, though. Happy to answer any questions. I'll just try and be very succinct so we can get through these properties in a reasonably short order. On page 14, there's a commentary about, in Altus Group's article, Emerging Trends about the Bifurcation of Retail. What they say, and the quotes I provide there, essentially indicate that luxury and discount retailers appeared to be doing significantly well. They're in quite an advantage, while the mid-tier retailers were the ones suffering. So that's a consideration when looking at the retail market. And then I talk about the onset of the tariff war and the additional uncertainty resulting from that at the bottom of page 14 and going into page 15. There's some commentary from Simon Kutcher at the bottom of page 15, which again talks about the fact that non-discretionary items will, of course, more money will be spent on that, and the discretionary purchases will very much tend to decline. Page 16, some more commentary around what's happening when consumer confidence is low, including looking for cheaper price points, in-store brands, delaying non-essential purchases, and preference for domestic products. And that would apply, of course, to if products are being tariffed in a significant way, then those products can be very expensive for consumers. On page 17, then, this is really where some of the information on specific to Winnipeg starts. And on page 17, there's the graph showing there's 4 different lines on that graph. The retail neighborhood line being, and I'm not color blind, but I'm going to suggest it's a very dark red. As you can see, they're going into Q1 of 2025. The cap rates were hovering for retail neighborhood generally in that 7% range. On page 18, there's a number of capitalization rate charts there that, and Winnipeg is one of the centers included in there, and they're typically in that, with all of those different variations, they're in that 6.5% to 7.5% range. Then, if I might turn the board's attention to page 20, this is these are the sales that we analyzed leading up to the reference date. They range from a low of 6.11% for property in St. Anne's up to a high of 9.13% for a regional center on McPhillips. You can see there for the transactions in 2023 and 2024, with only one exception, they were significantly higher than 6.75%, and several of them were above the 7% range based on the analysis that we've done. I then at pages 21 through, just get the page references correct, 21 through 37, we have information on each of the properties and the calculation that we had performed in the analysis we'd done to come up with those capitalization rates. And on page 36, there is a chart from the broker studies that shows again the general ranges. And I stress this, Mr. Chairman, I'm not relying on them. It's information that is certainly of interest, but we're ultimately at the end of the day relying on our own analysis that we'd completed. But I do note one of the interesting things from that chart on page 36 is that the cap rate ranges that were reported by the brokers tended to be 25 to 50 basis points higher as of the end of Q1 25 relative to Q1 23, which was the previous reference date. So on page 37, we provide our ranges for the property. Again, different ranges for different quality of property. The top qualities are nearly always based upon the grocery or drugstore anchored sites. That certainly we noticed that in our data as well, that would tend to result in cap rates that are on the lower end. And for the higher risk profile, we mentioned there was the one property above 9%. So our range at the highest end of it was 8.5% plus, certainly depending on the level of risk. Then our capitalization rates are selected based on the lower quality range, and sometimes even going above that 8.5% rate. So with all of that said, what I'm again going back to this case, I'm suggesting this is very much would fall into the standard quality category. I've selected a rate of 7.25% and asked the board to make the revisions accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Pondia?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Ardell, questions?
None, thanks.
All right. I was just going to, it's an interesting, the discussion you had, Mr. Reimer, with respect to all the outside stresses that are being put on some of the retailers in Winnipeg. This particular mix of retailers, it's rather unique in that it's basically direct service type of there's not really any retail going on here whatsoever. So it doesn't seem to have quite maybe as much stress being put on it as a result of that. Would you agree with me on that?
No, not necessarily. I mean, so Mr. Chairman, just make sure I understand, because it's like when you look at the auto body, the Boyd, obviously that's a significant tenant, but then through the rest of them with the medical center and the dental, I still categorize that as a function of retail, but that's not the same as a mid-tier retailer selling clothes or something like that. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, that's fair. but I still would suggest to you that at the end of the day, the range for a property in this location and of this quality would indicate a cap rate in that standard quality range. I would not put this at top quality. I mean, dentists
No, I'm not
and-
gonna suggest to you that, but I'm just saying it doesn't seem to have quite as many stresses being put on it. And that's my thought.
I get what you, because am I correct in thinking that what you're suggesting is they're selling services rather than shoes and clothes and such?
Exactly, unless immune to market fluctuations with respect to, all the other outside noise that's happening now around, so.
I think that's a fair comment. I'd suggest the 7.25 is not inappropriate, but I do agree with you. These are not the same as selling shoes and
No, I
insurance.
agree,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, your EGI is, and the assessors is a difference of $29,000, so you're not exactly miles and miles apart here.
We're not, but that is recall, Mr. Chairman. I do believe, based on just what I saw, I think actually the majority of that difference in the potential rent relates to the office space, relates to Ladco's
Yeah,
offices.
I would agree with you on that, sir.
Yeah. So, and that is very significant because it just doesn't. The quality and the quality of that space is just, it's not the same animal as the retail spaces there.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Any wrap up from either party this morning on this?
No submission on my part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we will move on to the next property being item number 5, 841 Leela. Mr. Pandya, anytime you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just opening up the
Yeah.
documents here. If you just give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, and I'm ready to go now.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, so up next we have file 26-2288. The roll number is 1105-179-5200. The address is 841 Layla Avenue. The 2027 assessment has gone out at 32,854,000, classified as a 6DT. This building is classified as a neighborhood shopping center. We have 6 buildings associated with the subject and 12 premises associated, and it's a 1-story building. The actual year built is 1976 and 2004, with an effective year as well of 1976 and 2004. We have a total land area of 513,880 square feet and a total leasable area of 123,692 square feet. And we do have a preliminary issue with these with this file in regards to the non-cooperation.
All right.
So if I can direct your attention to page to page 17, I believe.
Thank you.
I'll give you a second to get there. So the top of the heading should read 2024 income and expense mailer, and then in parentheses, we have a reprint due to not receiving the documents from the owners. And so the information provided is just a reprint of the documents that would have been sent to the owners. So we can see the address there where we would have sent the document. And we have the cover page in English, followed by French, I believe. And then from there, we do have the 529 forms that are included. And it's just a reprint of the forms we would have sent to the owners. So that's my presentation on the non-cooperation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reimer. What is the issue with your client, sir?
Actually, just a quick question, Mr. Chairman, then I do have rebuttal. Mr. Pontier, on page 17, then just to clarify, the questionnaire had gone to the address. I think that's an 820, or sorry, 2500 360 Main Street in Winnipeg.
Yep, that's correct. That's what we would have had on file for it.
Okay, and there was no other address, or that was the only one on file, correct?
From my understanding, correct. Yep.
Fair enough. Mr. Chairman, I do have rebuttal and some very brief comments in this case, if I could ask for that to be distributed.
That would be, we have a moment, Francis, could you pull that up?
I'm distributing right now.
Yeah, thank you.
I should have a copy, but I'm just mad to refresh. Yeah, and it should be uploaded to the shared drive as well.
Everybody have that available yet?
I've received it.
Okay,
I have not.
no?
Not yet.
Shows 841 applicant rebuttal. Item 5.
I have it, yeah.
You got it now? Excellent.
Good.
You good?
Yep.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Reimer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This brief, the first several pages are identical in our commentary to, or nearly identical to what I had submitted earlier, so I'm not going to go through it in a lot of detail. Here's the concern we have. Can we just then please go to page 7?
Go ahead.
On page 7, this is taken from the department's records to Garden City Square Shopping Center Ltd, which is the same entity to which the request was sent in Mr. Pontonier's evidence, but the address is entirely different. It's the, as you can see there, it's the Montreal, Quebec mailing address, which is not the same as the address of 360 Main Street. And on the following page, at page 8, at the bottom, this is for information purposes only as it relates to the non-compliance penalty. They did, pardon me, the owner did reply to the questionnaire for this property, an adjacent one that's owned commonly. And again, at the bottom of that cover page, it shows that same mailing address in Montreal. So the concern, here's the difficulty. And Mr. Pontier was very clear. He said that's the address that was on record, and I believe this is a timing issue because clearly the department's records now, based on the mailing address shown on page 7, it has been updated to the Montreal, Quebec address, but this questionnaire was not sent to that address. So, and again, given the 2025 questionnaire being responded to and it was sent as a correct address, I do have a concern that the questionnaire should have, for 2024 information, should have been sent to the Montreal address. What I do not have in my records and in my possession is an explicit date as to when that address would have changed.
From the assessor in this case, so.
Yeah,
Mr.
so that's the
Pontier,
concern.
Yeah, can you check your note and see if in fact that has A, changed, and B, when, sir?
If you want to give me a second, I can take a look.
Yes, please.
Sorry, it's just opening up. It's just sometimes it's a little slow. All right. Okay, and then I'll just look over here. So I'm not seeing any notes in my internal database here in terms of, let me just give me 1 second here. I'll just take another look to see if a note was provided.
And do
Mailing.
do you see that the address was in fact changed, sir?
Oh,
Yes.
if for that, just let me open up another. So I was looking in one spot. Let me just open up another spot here to see if I can just find it for you. Sorry, I have so many tabs open that I have to close things and to find. There we go. Okay, and just got to plug in the roll number here, and then I'll let you know if we have it changed in our records here. Yes, so we do currently have the registered owner's mailing address as 800-511 Darms Place in Montreal.
Okay,
So we do have that on file now. In terms of when that was updated, that's what I'm trying to locate to see if I can find a note or something that someone had updated it in our system. So that's what I was taking a look at. So I can confirm that the Montreal address is what we have, which I think actually confirms that Mr. Reimer said that we had sent out a request and received the latest mailer, so that would confirm that.
all right.
Um,
Well, unless you have a note that you can find quickly, otherwise,
yeah, just give me
I,
1 more minute and then I'll see if I can find anything here within the years that I have, because that probably would have been around the 23, 22 time period. Um,
or later.
so I do have a note that I'm seeing in my system for a change of address for servicing. I'm not really sure if that's the request's mailing address, but there is something here listing a change. Um, And it's interesting, the change was from a Toronto mailing address that we originally had to what looks to be the mailing address that was used when we sent that request out. So that was in 24. Um, but in terms of the Montreal address, I can't see anything off the top here that would show that. But
Okay,
I can agree with Mr. Reimer that we did have the 23 mailer on file, and we do have the following 25 mailer on file. So while I can't confirm the exact date of when the mailing address was updated, if we look at the trail of paperwork, it would seem to sort of corroborate what Mr. Reimer's saying that at some point it was updated. So perhaps it was a timing issue. I can't really speak to that.
okay. We will go in camera.
Can I just ask a question
Sorry.
first
Go ahead.
of
Ms.
Mr.
Mack.
Reimer? Do you know if the client put a change of address in with the post office so that all his mail would be redirected?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I do know they notified the department, but on a general, like that general direction, Miss Knight, to the post office, I do not know.
I know I used to work for a company and we would put it in for a year. So that's why I'm asking.
Oh,
So like,
okay.
so we wouldn't lose any mail that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will go in camera and we will make our decision. So give us a few moments and we will take care of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to go to the
Thank you.
washroom in the meantime in case
Yeah,
I'm
no
gone.
worries.
You're back by Mr. Chair, and I will get our applicant and assessor package.
Thank you very much. Back. There we go. Welcome back. Sorry for the delay. The ruling that we have on the non-co-op is we are denying it. So, Mr. Pontier, would you like to continue on with your presentation, please?
Sure, Mr. Chair. So we've gone over page 1. So if I can direct your attention to page 2, and I'll start there.
Yep, go ahead.
So on page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. Following that, I have included an overhead view of the subject property. And then following that, I've included a south-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I have included some Google Street View images of the subject property. I've included several pictures there of the different tenants. We went over the request for income and expense information, so we don't need to go over that. We have no sales history for this subject, and we have no current leases on file. For the subject property, or for the comparables, I have included 2 lists. The first list that I've included is rent comparables that are used as a neighborhood shopping center. So these rent comparables are from within the same market region as the subject property. And they're all different uses. So we have some retail and then some, it looks to be some, actually, you know what? We have all retail. I thought maybe we had something else here, but maybe one of them is a sit-down restaurant, but the majority are retail spaces that I've included, or maybe 1 or 2 of them, but the majority are retail spaces that I've included. And we do have total leasable areas that we have for the comparables ranging from, it looks to be about 1,100 square feet, more or less at the lower end, to approximately looks to be 6,000 square feet at the higher end. And then I do have rents that range in the comparables list from, it looks to be around $16 at the lower end. And then taking us as high as around $25, if I'm not mistaken, at the higher end, or $27 we have one for at the higher end. So we have a range there. And then following that, I have included some rent comparables for the gas station pumps, the gas station that we have on the stream. And so you can see this is from citywide, so that's not just from within the market region, but it gives you an idea of some of the leases that are being achieved by the gas stations. And we can see some areas that range from 123 square feet up to 3,100 square feet. And then we have rents that range from, looks to be around $26 at the lower end up to $154 at the higher end, but that's also based on the size of the comparable there. Moving forward, we are now entering the income stream for these subject properties. So we do have 2 streams associated. The first stream is for neighborhood shopping center. So we do have about, it looks to be about 11 premises on the income stream. And we do have areas that range from 1,451 square feet at the lower end to 40,293 square feet at the higher end. And then we do have rents that range from, it looks to be $13 at the lower end to about $34 at the higher end. The total potential generated is $2,165,324. The total area for the first income stream is 123,492 square feet. And when we do the math on it, we'd get a blended rate of $17.53 applied. From there, we do have the model parameters for neighborhood shopping center. So we have a 4% vacancy a 3% expense rate, and an $11 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $1,962,014. And then we have a model cap rate of 6.15%, which gives us a total assessed value for the first income stream of $31,903,000. On page 2, we do have the store kiosk with pump stream. And so we do have an area on file of 200 square feet. And then we have a modeled rent of $174.56 per square foot, which gives us a total potential rent of $34,912. And then from there, we do have model parameters for the SKP stream. So we have a 2% vacancy, a 3% expense, and a $6 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $33,164. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate of 4.75%, which gives us a total cap value of $698,000. And then we also have an additional building value, which is the pumps of $253,000, which gives us a total value for the gas station of $951,000. Following that, I do have the summary of the information just provided. So we can see the neighborhood shopping center stream and the gas station stream for a total assessed value of $32,854,000. Following that, I do have the cap rate information that the City of Winnipeg provides. And then I do have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts provided. And then following that was the 2024 income and expense mailer information that we went over. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions at this time, Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple. Mr. Pontonia, could we go to your page 12, please?
Yep.
So we can see there that there's a total of 5 premises that are 10,000 square feet and beyond, all the way up to 40,293, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could we go back to your pages 9 and 10 then? So these are the retail comparables. Now there's no, of all the comparables that the departments run here, they're all, actually the largest I believe is 6,000 feet, but the vast majority are less than 3,000 square feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can we agree that economies of scale and the larger premises would typically be a factor in the rental rate that's able to be achieved?
Yeah, we can agree to that.
Again, on pages 12 and 13, all model driven, correct?
All model driven.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, questions asked and answered on cap rate?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
And Ms. Knight, any questions?
I just have a question on page 11.
Yep.
So all those properties are gas stations, I believe.
Correct.
So why is there such a difference in rate? Like the one is $154, the others are $26.52. Why are they so different?
Mostly it's due to the economies of scale, as Mr. Reimer had sort of alluded to. So if you look at, for example, the 341 Wardlaw comparable, that one is
Yeah.
123 square feet at $154, which does seem high, but when you plug the numbers in, 123 square feet multiplied by 154.47, which is the lease rate, we get a value of $18,999.81. One could round out to 19,000. So that would be the sort of rents that's being achieved by the by that one comparable. And then if you were to do the math on the other ones too, notwithstanding the Red River Co-op, which admittedly seems to be a pretty high lease at
Which one's the Red River?
1,680. That would be
Okay,
1070 Henderson.
okay,
Yeah. That one has a pretty high lease. I would agree to that. But the other ones seem to be within a range, right? We have 26. So even if we were to plug in, for example, 1225 St. Mary's, if we did the math on that and we did 2,610 square feet, we multiply that by $26.82. That one's a little higher at 70,000 would be the rental. So I mean, again, we have different locations, different lease arrangements. I can't really speak to the details of the
Mhm.
leases. This is just the information that we have provided. But
Okay,
again, if you do some of the math on them, some of them do sort of wind out to being more or less kind of similar in rents achieved. There might be obviously exceptions like there are all the time. There's um outliers, but more or less this just seems to be a glimpse at information at some of the leases
so,
that are achieved.
so did they all have the same number of gas outputs then?
In terms of pumps and whatnot, that would be
Yeah,
that would be more specialized information that I just don't have on
okay,
file in terms of
okay.
which offers what. Sorry.
Well, I'm just thinking that 154 is a little crazy, that's all.
Yep, it is high, but again, it's only 123 square feet. So
Right, I understand
when you
that.
do the math, it does equal out to 19,000. Actually, that's a very reasonable rental rate in place for a yearly rental rate. If you then you take that 19,000 divided by 12, that would give you
Mm-hmm.
sort of a monthly rent idea. So then actually it ends up being quite reasonable,
Yeah, okay.
in
All
my
right,
opinion.
thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you very much. And I believe the Wardlaw location, is that not a Domo gas bar, just like the subject?
That would be
Oh.
good. That's fair. Yes, that would be fair to say.
Okay, and that's the reason why the rate is so high, because it's such a small building.
Exactly. And then if you look
As
at our
opposed to as opposed to the other properties that you've shown here, which all have obviously some sort of a store
exactly.
of some size attached to it.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Chair. So if you were to look at the SKP
Okay,
modeled rate of $174, it seems to be in line just based on its size of 200 square feet.
fair enough. Those are my questions. Let's move on. Mr. Reimer, let's have
Thanks,
your
Mr.
presentation, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Knight asked some very, very pointed questions and very good questions. So I'm actually, there's not a lot that turns on it. I just want to comment briefly. Could we please turn to page 18 initially of our main evidence? And Miss Knight nailed it on the head. When you get to these wee little Domo kiosks, which is what this is, the per square foot rate becomes nearly meaningless. You've got, 120, 115, 140 feet, and the square foot rate seems entirely out of whack. And I suggest it is. And if you look at our chart on page 18, and Mr. Chairman, you actually alluded to this, the distinction between the domos or the domo in the one case and the other sites. Our data shows very clearly that there is a definite sort of bifurcation of the really small domo sites, which is what this one is, and the sites around the city, which typically will have, 2 or 4 pumps. Versus the Red River co-ops and the major stations, which have obviously a whole lot more infrastructure, many more pumps. And at the end of the day, the rental rates are impacted by, I believe the term that was used was output. That's bang on. When you've got the domos with their by design, they're very small operations, few pumps, and the rents are very low. And as opposed to sort of trying to figure it out on a square foot basis with these tiny little kiosks, which doesn't hold a lot of meaning, I'd suggest. On page 18, we've put the range on a rent per annum, because whether the kiosk is 120 feet or 150 feet, it's really irrelevant. What is relevant is the number of pumps, sort of the throughput that is estimated, and then they will set the rent accordingly. So the rental range is these are all Domo sites. On page 18, the rental range is from 22,000 up to 37.5. I'm going to stop talking now, and the reason I say that on this issue is we're $2,000 difference in our rent. We're using the 25 renewal rate, but it's really close to what the department's modeled. So I'm still asking for that rent to be used, but at the end of the day, the difference isn't material. I did want to go through that exercise though, because it does come up regularly where these Domo sites and the gas stations generally are valued a little differently based on the number of pumps they have and what's all there, C-store versus 150 feet of kiosk. If I then could go back, please, to page page 14, please. So as the department's done, we've provided 2 different income streams, one for the kiosk I'll touch on very briefly in a bit, but the main one, of course, being the neighborhood shopping center. So on page 14, you can see there the total potential rent we're applying for the NSC component is $1,912,000. I do want to draw the board's attention to a couple of things. Of course, some of these spaces, there's a wide variation of unit areas, and that has a direct impact, as one would expect, on the rental rates that are able to be achieved. The Staples rent, as you can see, the first row there, this was a January 2024 renewal, so not very far off the reference date at all, but that's also a space of 23,000, over 23,000 square feet at $12. The Marshalls space that's larger still at 1450, but that was a renewal in August of 2020 prior to the pandemic. And as you can see, the other larger spaces tend to have the lower rents. Dollarama, that space had been chronically vacant for years and years and years, and it just doesn't have good exposure, and was proving to be a huge problem in terms of trying to generate any interest. Dollarama was finally secured, and as you can see there, in August of 23, the actual lease rate is 460, and getting 460 net is better than getting nothing and having to carry that space with the shortfall costs. So they were happy to get it, but all that to say, there is a reason why that space is at that rate. It simply wasn't generating any significant interest over the years until Dollarama came. I've applied, notwithstanding the lower rate, I've applied a market rate of 650. That reflects a degree of optimism that perhaps after the initial term is done, that there would be some impetus to renew at higher rates, but it is higher than the net rent in place. Turning to page 15 then, we had reference to the market indicators shown there, some of the larger spaces, some of the smaller spaces, but we believe at the end of the day that the 1,912,000 is a very fair representation of what this property is able to achieve for those spaces. We are agreeing with the assessor and the remainder of the parameters up to cap rate, so we're using 4% vacancy, 11 shortfall, 3% non-recoverables. Again, for the reasons I've set forth earlier, the standard quality rates in our study would be between 7 and 7.5%. We're applying 7.25. Mr. Chairman, your comments are very germane. In the previous hearing, we talked about sort of the service units rather than the sales. And of course, as you can look at the rent roll data that we've provided in our valuation on page 17, at the end of the day, this is primarily sales. There's a couple of restaurants there, but it's the Staples and the Moores and the Mark's Worker House that is directly those sales type operations. So page 17, see there 1,912,000 running through the parameters, but applying the 7.25 cap rate suggests a value of 23,832,000. We turn then very briefly back to page 18. As I've mentioned, the renewal rate in November 19 was 32,872 per annum. We're applying that consistent with the other Domo rents for those operations, same number of pumps, etc., as shown on page 18. And then going to page 19, the biggest difference in our respective valuations is actually not rent. We're a little lower on the rent, but it's cap rate, and we're suggesting the same rate of 7.25% as part of, this is an integrated economic unit that includes that gas bar. We're applying the same adjustments for pumps, tanks, canopies at 253. Then turning briefly to page 20, you can see the resulting value based on those parameters is 683,402, rounded to 683. And finally, then on page 21, the total requested value using that 7.25 cap rate is 24,516,000 rounded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reimer. Questions, Mr. Potniat?
Just one question in regards to the 7.25% cap rate. Does that 7.25%, Mr. Reimer, would you consider that to be a little bit on the higher end, or if my memory is not mistaken, is your range the 7 to the 7.5%?
100%, it's 7 to 7.5, Mr.
Okay,
Fontenay.
so you're going in the middle. Okay.
I'm going in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on that. No further questions, thanks.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Knight?
I thought you had said that you agreed to the gas part, the 200 at the 174 that the city came out with. Did you not say you agreed to that?
I don't agree with it, but it's a very minor difference. It's the difference between 32,800 versus 34,912. So it's not material, but I am my request remains the same at the 32,672, but quite bluntly, if the board were to take the slightly higher rent that's presented by Mr. Pontinia, but apply, I'd suggest the cap rate is 7.25. That would also make perfect sense to me.
Okay. Okay. All right, I got you now. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions answered, thanks.
Thank you, and I'm just catching up here, so give me a moment. I don't think I have. You'd agree with me, this is a fairly good location in that respect, do you not, Mr. Rammer?
It's not a poor location. I don't disagree with that. The tenant mix is a little more along the lines of what we've discussed with the mid-tier retail, but the location is good. I would agree.
Okay, and you would agree with me that that the gas kiosk is certainly reasonably assessed at the number that you've agreed with the exception of the cap rate that you're applying to it, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see there's a big distinction between my potential rent and the department's. Entirely agree with that.
Okay. I think we have it then. Yeah. All right, so then we will, I guess, conclude at that point. Any summation from either party?
No summation on my part, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Mr.
Good.
Chairman.
All right, then we will close this matter and move on to the next one. So just give me a moment.
Yeah, I got to open as well.
Yeah. All right. Forgive me while I kind of bounce around a little bit. So this is item number 7, 2727 Portage Avenue. Mr. Potney.
I thought I had 1050 Layla Avenue next. Or am I incorrect on that? Or
Hang on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm mistaken. Give me a moment.
okay, no problem.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I jumped over one. Apologies.
No worries.
Go ahead.
All right, so up next we have file 26-2583. The address is 0500 903 7500. The address is 1050 Layla Avenue. We do have two components to the 2027 assessment. The first component we have is a classification 40 liability S for taxable school exemption. And that went out at 7,126,000. And then we also have a 60 taxable component at 7,861,000 for a total assessment for 2027 of 14,987,000. We do have this listed as a neighborhood shopping center. That we have 2 buildings associated with the subject, 3 premises associated, and it's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 1982 with an effective year built of 1995 and 2005. The total land area for the subject is 231,482 square feet. And we have a total leasable area of 58,363 square feet on file. On the first page I have, following the summary, is a image of the pad eye view, a pad eye view image, sorry, of the subject property, showing its orientation there. Looks to be on the corner of Layla Avenue and Watson. Following that, I do have pictometry images. The first pictometry image is an overhead image of the subject property. Following that, I have a north-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I do have some Google Street View images of the subject property. You can see some images of the tenants that are in place there. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have 2 sales on file for the subject property. The most recent sale is from 2005 for 2,285,000. And then we also have a sale from 2002 for 1.7 million. And we don't have any leases on file for the subject. For rent comparables, I have included rent comparables that are all listed as neighborhood shopping centers. These are all from the market region 2, which is the same as the subject, and we do have various uses. Although I believe they are all retail uses. And so we do have some bigger leases to report here. These are all the square footage ranges from 8,400 square feet, more or less, at the lower end, and goes as high as 14,000 square feet at the higher end. And then we do have rents that range from, looks to be $13 at the lower end, up to $31.50 at the higher end. So we do have a range there. So we do have 2 components to the valuation. For the first income stream, we do have it listed as the neighborhood shopping center, and this is the 60T stream, so this is the taxable stream. So we have 2 premises associated, a C1 premise for 18,399 square feet at $16.86 per square foot. And then we have the other premise at 13,186 square feet. We have that at $17.30 per square foot. The total potential rent is $538,325. And when we plug in the total area of 31,585 square feet, we have a blended rate between the two of $17.04 per square foot. From there, we do have model parameters in place for vacancy. So we have a vacancy of 4%. We have an expense rate of 3% and an $11 shortfall per square foot. That takes us to a net operating income of $487,391. And then from there, we do have a modeled cap rate of 6.2% applied, which brings us to our total assessed value for the first income stream of $7,861,000. Following that, on the second income stream, we do have the 40S, so the school tax exempt stream. And we have 1 premise associated at 26,778 square feet. And we have a modeled rate of $18.19 applied, which gives us a total potential rent of $487,092. And then from there, we have the similar neighborhood shopping center model parameters applied. So we have a 4% expense rate, a 4% vacancy rate, a 3% expense rate, and an $11 shortfall per square foot, which gives us a net operating income of $441,798. And then from there, we have a 6.2% modeled cap rate applied, which brings us to our total assessed value for the second stream of $7,126,000. Following that, I do have a summary of both streams and the information that was just provided. So then that's what brings us to the total assessed value for 2027 of $14,987,000. Following that, I do have the cap rate information provided. That's been provided in all the previous briefs. And then following that, I do have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts provided. And then following that, I have included the 2024 income and expense mailer. And that information takes us to the end of my brief. And
Thank you
that
very
is
much.
my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reimer.
Thanks,
Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pontinia, could we go to page 9, please?
Yep.
And I believe you alluded to it. These are all retail uses in these various units, correct?
Correct.
So there's no, and where I'm going with this is WRHA space. There's none of these are office rents, correct?
Yes, that's correct. They're all retail spaces.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, questions asked and answered on the capitalization rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rammer. I appreciate that. Ms. Knight, questions?
Just your rent comparables. You've only got one on McPhillips, which is kind of close. The rest of them are so
Yep.
far away. Is there anything that you could have given closer to that?
Well, I was actually going based on size. So for this particular presentation, I thought that it would make more sense to just include comparables that were sort of similar in size to the subject. I mean, McPhillips to Henderson, McPhillips to Regent. One could say that while they're in different parts of the city, they are sort of regional roads, and they might have similar density for the infrastructure surrounding and population density and stuff. So, I mean, they might not necessarily be across the street per se, but I still believe that it gives you some good information as to leases obtained for the size of the subject property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Arnell, questions?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you very much, and I don't believe I have any questions either, so Mr. Rammer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll preface my comments by stating that of the two income streams, there's one for the retail, one for WRHA space. So I'm not disputing the valuation of the retail component. I do want to go through that just briefly, though. Ms. Knight asked a very good question about the lease comps and such. So I want to provide this board comfort with our valuation on the thing. So if we could initially go to page 14, please. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the evidence. This is the main brief, not the cap study. And as it indicated about the middle of page 14, we're not disputing.
Now you've got, yeah, I see what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't disagree with 7,861,000 for the retail component. We do have some lease comparables. There's a chart at the bottom of the page. There's obviously a wide range, and I think we recognize that very last entry. That's the Dollarama from what we just heard. That's very low. But the range generally is between 12 and 26 bucks for the bank. For various kinds of or sizes of spaces, there are a few there that are 10,000 feet plus, and they start. One's at 23, but most of them are at 16 and a quarter or lower. So at the end of the day, on paragraph or page 15, this is our valuation. We come at it differently. At the end of the day, we're applying the same 7.25 cap, but we are using the income of 626,947 as a market income based on the lease comparables, and ultimately end up at that value. The element of the valuation of the assessor's valuation that we have concerns with is the WRHA office space. So if we could turn to page 16. So they were paying, as of the reference date, WRHA is paying $1,550 semi-gross for the larger space of 21,666 and 1,880 a foot semi-gross for unit 4, which is the much smaller unit of 5,012. So the average average net rent being achieved for the space, essentially one space, is $1,463 a square foot net. We have, for the board's reference on page 16, provided larger suburban office rent comparables, wide range, a lot of different areas. I'd suggest that of the comparables, I found it somewhat difficult to find truly good comparables for larger suburban office like this. I'd suggest at the end of the day that number 5, which is larger, 77,000 feet on Fultz, that was at 15 and a quarter, and then 2 down from that, index 7. Also a Squarefield at effective age of 2000, and number 13, which is a larger premise on Main Street, 31,000 with an effective year of 2000. So those I'd suggest give perhaps the most reliable indicator based on size of the tenancy and effective age of the building. And the 1,463 a square foot is certainly entirely consistent with that range, we'd suggest. Then turning to page 17, we're applying 4% vacancy, 11 shortfall, non-recovered at 3%, and for the reasons that we set forth in our Ryan ULC retail capitalization rate study, we're applying 7.25%. This building, of course, you can see that there is, it's not 50-50, but just a little over half of it, 31,585 feet of the total 58,000 feet is full retail. 26,778 is the WRHA space at the other end of the building or other side of the building. So we're continuing to suggest at the end of the day, this building would be characterized as retail, and we are applying the 7.25% cap rate based on that. But I do recognize that the flavor is a little different because nearly half this space is taken up by WHA as an office tenant. So subject to any questions, sorry, on page 19, then we can provide the summary there. As again, the retail valuation at 7,861,000 is consistent with departments, and the focus that we had was on the WRHA space, where we're coming in at 5,229,000 for that 40S space. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Pontier?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions, Ms. Knight?
No, I think I'm good.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you very much. And I'm just, again, catching up. Moving a little slow this morning for some reason. So you are at 5,229,000 then for the office side of this particular property, correct?
Yeah, exactly right, and that's coded 40S school tax exempt. That's correct.
Yes. All right. I think those are my questions. Thank you. I have nothing further. So, gentlemen, do you have anything to add to this?
No summation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank
No,
you.
no, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And that does bring us to item number 7. And that is 2727 Portage. So go ahead, Mr. Pontier.
Okay. Just give me 1 second to finish opening up. Okay, and I am ready to go. So up next we have file 26-2234. The roll number is 0707 170 3500. The address is 2727 Portage Avenue. The 2027 assessment has gone out at 14,556,000. And this is classified as 60T. Once again, this is a neighborhood shopping center. There are 3 buildings associated with the subject and 27 premises associated. And it's a 1-story building. We have an actual year built of 1967 with an effective year in place of 1967 and 1975. The total land area is 133,758 square feet. And the total leasable area is 46,683 square feet. On page 2, I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property. On page 3, I have included a pictometry overhead view of the subject property. We can see its location there on the corner of Portage and Booth. Following that, I do have a south-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I have included Google Street View images of the subject property. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We have no sales history on file for the subject property. In terms of leases, we do have 3 leases in place for the subject property that we have on file. And these leases range in area from 910 square feet to 1,861 square feet. And then we have rents achieved that range from $19.50 at the lower end to $22 at the higher end. I have included rent comparables that are all from within the same market region as the subject property. These are all neighborhood shopping center comparables. And we do have various uses for some of these comparables, ranging from retail to restaurant or sit-down restaurant. And so I've included several pages of that. Following that, I do have some land comparable sales information. So as we do have a land component valuation in place, I included some information to support that. And so we can see that we have 4 comparables in place. I tried to look for some land sales that were somewhat close to the subject property on Portage Avenue. So 3 of them are listed as being on Portage Avenue with no civic address being listed for the second comparable. If memory serves correct, I believe that it was further west on Portage, maybe just off of Portage. But again, there's no civic address associated. And we can see the areas that range from 12,184 square feet for comparable 3, and we go all the way up to 89,818 square feet. And then we do have sales that range from 2019 at the lower end to 2025 at the higher end, just before the reference period. And then we have sales prices per square foot that range from $74 to $99.24 at the higher end. We do have an excess land calculation for the subject property. So we can see where the 2 circles are in place. That's where we did have some buildings that were removed. And so we are including this in the valuation as excess land. So we can go through the excess land calculation there. The total land area that we have for this subject is 133,758 square feet. And the excess land is approximately 10% of the total parcel area. So you're looking at approximately 13,376 square feet of excess land. And then we have our land valued at 4,110,000 is the total land value. And if we multiply that by 10%, then we do get $411,000 rounded as the excess land valuation. And if you recall, for some of the land comparables that I had provided, which had a range from $74 to $99, we have the subject property valued at $30.73 per square foot. We also have a parking lot component with the subject property. So I have included some information in regards to support the parking lot valuation that's in place. So for the parking lot calculation for the subject, we have a total of 88 stalls, and then we have a modeled rate of $102 per stall, which brings us to $107,712 per annum. And once again, that's $102 per stall is what the subject is valued at. And then if you look at the comparable properties, we do have the area. So this would be primarily downtown, but one can extract some of the reported rates there. You can extract that to further out from downtown. And we do have ranges, the stalls that we do, the comparables that we do have stall counts that range from 12 all the way up to, looks to be about 1,000 for 393 Portage Avenue. So that's quite a range in stall count. Heated and unheated. And then you can see the monthly rates, both monthly, casual, and then there's a stabilized column at the very end. And then at a high level glance, you can see the average is $132.43 with a median rate of $130.22. And then following that, I do have some more comparable information in terms of the parking lot. And this would be for actual gross parking structure rates as of April 1st, 2025. And so we have quite a range of data there to look over for yourselves when valuing the parking lot component. the stall counts range from 62, and then it goes all the way up to 1,000 as previously mentioned. And then we have monthly rates, and then along with hourly and daily rates, evening rates. So you have a lot of information there in terms of the valuation of the parking lot structures. And then I've also included a map of the rental rates for the parking structures. So you can see in the map there that lists all the comparables provided to give you an idea of where they're found. Once again, primarily these are all from downtown, but it can be extrapolated to some parking structures around the rest of the city. Okay, and now that we've provided all that, we can now move on to the income stream, the valuation for the subject. So there are two components, as previously mentioned, a parking structure and the neighborhood shopping center component for the streams. So we'll start with the neighborhood shopping center. So as previously mentioned, I believe there's approximately 24 premises that are on the stream. The areas range in size from 107 square feet at the lower end up to 9,151 square feet at the higher end. The rents range in value from $8.16 for the storage mezzanine premise there. So that'd be for storage, and then for the rest, they range, so we can look at $8, and it can go all the way up to a little bit of that absurd number there of $163 for the kiosk. But again, that's just because of the size. 107 square feet, so there's an economy of scale in place there. And so that brings us to the total potential rent generated of $915,490. And when we divide that by the total area of 46,682 square feet, we do get a blended rental rate applied of $19.61 per square foot. And then from there, I do have the neighborhood shopping center model parameters applied. So we do have the 4% vacancy, a 3% expense rate, and an $11 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to a net operating income of $831,964. And then from there, we do have a modeled cap rate applied of 6.6%, which brings us to a total cap value of capitalized value of $12,606,000 rounded. And then as previously mentioned, for the excess land component, we do have a excess land value in place of $411,000, which I had shown you previously of how we arrived to it. And so that brings us to a total assessed value for the first income stream at $13,017,000. Following that, I do have the second income stream, and this income stream is in regards to the parking structure in place, or the parking lot that's in place for the subject. And we do have on record 88 stalls for the parking lot, and it is a heated parking structure. And we have a modeled rate of $102 per stall, which brings us to a total annum value of $107,712. And then from there, we do have a 7% cap rate applied. And that brings us to a total value for the parking lot structure of $1,539,000. Following that, I do have an income value. I do have a summary of all the data that I just provided with you. And it shows the total value of $14,556,000. Following that, I do have some cap rate information that we've gone over already. And I do, following that, there are some municipal assessment excerpts provided. And then following that is the 2024 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that takes us to the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reimer. Questions at this time, sir?
Just a couple, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Pontinia, could we please go to page 1?
Yep.
So the land to building ratio in this case is 2.63 to 1, correct?
That's what it's showing, correct? Yep.
Okay. And going then to your page 11.
Yep.
So you're aware that the buildings that you're showing in that page haven't been around for many years, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. You know, Mr. Chairman, the issues are relatively narrow here. Questions asked and answered on cap rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Arnell, question, sir. Sorry, you were muted, sir.
Sorry about that. No questions, thanks.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight?
The 411, that's that empty property, that's those two buildings that are no longer there, is that correct?
That's correct, Ms. Knight. So if you look, if we go back to page, sorry, I'm just
11?
scroll. I believe it's 11. Yep, as you go back to page 11 and then you'll look at these circles in place, that's exactly right.
Mhm.
That's where the buildings
So
used to be
those
there.
buildings
And
are gone and that's the value of the property.
that's right. They've been removed now. And then so we have that just included as excess land that can still be developed in some way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I don't believe I have any other questions at this point, so go ahead, Mr. Reimer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief because the issues distill to just two. First and foremost, the capitalization rate to apply to the neighborhood shopping center component. We're suggesting a rate of 7%. If I could ask the board and the assessor to go to page 18 of our evidence, please, our brief. So as you'll see, and you need not open it, but I'll just for the board's reference, the parking structure, the PST income stream and valuation, that's identical to the departments where they've applied the 7 cap. We're agreeing with the net stall rate of 107,000 and we're coming in at the same value. So the debate and the examination of the property goes back to the NSC component, and within that, we're actually applying a net market rent that's higher than the departments. The department's at 915 based on the model rents. We're at 941, but we are applying a higher capitalization rate of 7% rather than the 6.6% applied by the department. 7%, I'd suggest, is pardon me, it's based on the standard quality retail for this property. This mall has historically had some difficulty, and there's been some work to improve the facade, and it certainly reflects, trying to revitalize it to some extent. And so we're suggesting, based on the renovated or somewhat revitalized asset, that 7% is appropriate. The other thing we're not doing is applying an excess land calculation. And if the board members recall, Mr. Pontnia's map was actually very good. There used to be several years ago the two buildings on the site, but certainly the reason that we're not including it, recall that the land to building ratio is very low. It's sub 3. It's only 2.6 to 1, which is very low. And if the property were to, at one and the same time, try and attract tenants to the main structure, while limiting parking on a site that's already got a very low land to building ratio, I'd suggest to this board that those two objectives would fundamentally clash. And there's a reason why the building was demolished, the building that would be at the east end, and there's absolutely no plans to develop it, because to do so would impact the tenants that are already there. So we've not applied the 411,000 adjustment. We have applied the 7% cap rate to the NSC component. And as you can see then on page 18, our total valuation comes in at 13,754,000. Again, the parking structure being the precise same value, the differences being in the NSC component. If we could carry forward my comments on cap rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Pontnia?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Question, Ms. Knight.
You've got 2,000 extra square feet than what the assessor has. Where does that
Yeah.
come from?
That's from the owner's rent roll information. I noticed that too. I'm suggesting we use the higher square footage that we've got.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, any questions, sir?
Just confirmation, you're saying you're going to go with the 2,000 extra square feet?
Yes. Yeah. we're relying on the 48,713 square feet. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to wrap my head around something, Mr. Reimer. I know the buildings that were there at one point in time, and if I just go back, I know the picture at page 11 of the assessor brief shows them back in the day, which, again, it's a bit of a, I don't know if it has much use to us today, but when I look at the site itself, today, that appears to be just all used for parking, etc. Is that correct? And it's all owned. It appears to be all owned by the, had been that way since the beginning. Owned by the one owner, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Our page 7, Mr. Chairman, the bottom picture, it shows exactly what you're describing. It's all used for parking, for the mall.
Right. And that one little key indent that you see on the right-hand side of that, I guess that used to be a lane easement, I guess, or that's what I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
I believe so.
All right, but they have owned the entire site, save that one little indent.
That's correct.
Okay, and so you're eliminating the excess land because it's a very small land to building ratio, I believe is what you were pointing out to the assessor earlier, correct?
Yeah, the 2.6 is very low, and I'm suggesting in absolutely that already could present significant parking problems for the tenants in the mall, and to further reduce the available parking in this case would just be counterproductive.
Thank you. Those are my questions, sir. I appreciate it. Any summation on either party?
No summation
thank
on my part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the next property.
All right.
We are on item number 8, which is 3292 Portage Avenue. Mr. Potnia, can we have your brief on this, please?
You can, Mr. Chair. I'm just opening up Mr. Reimer's document here so I can have them both in front of me. Just about ready to go. Okay, and I am now ready to present. So up next, we have our final file on the docket, file number 26-2761. The roll number is 0755-331-2000. The address is 3292 Portage Avenue. The 2027 assessment has gone out at $29,802,000, and this is classified as a 6DT. This property is also listed as a neighborhood shopping center. We do have 5 buildings associated with the subject and 16 premises on the income stream. And it's a 1-story building. We do have an actual year built of 1964 and 2002 with an effective year in place of 2005. We do have a land area of 518,472 square feet and a total leasable area of 112,177 square feet. So the first image that I've included is the pad eye view image of the subject property. We can see its orientation on the corner of Portage Avenue and Westwood Drive. Following that, I have included an overhead view of the subject property. And then following that, I have a north-facing view and an east-facing view of the subject property. And then following that, I do have some Google Street View images of the subject property. And these images are stitched together from the 2017, 24, and the 26 map overlays. So that could be why the quality changes and the sky might change if an astute eye were to catch that. And so we can see the different tenants that are on the subject. I've included quite a few images, so we could just kind of scroll through them. We have received requests for income and expense information, so we're okay there. We do have one sale on file for the subject property. It's a 2005 sale for 11,600,000. We do have some leases on record in place for the subject property. So the leases range, I believe the oldest lease there is from 2009, it looks like. And then we do have areas that range from, it looks to be 1,500 at the lower end, up to 28,152 square feet at the higher end. And then we do have rents that range from, it looks to be $8.50 at the lower end, up to $35 at the higher end. For the market data, I have included rent comparables that are all listed as neighborhood shopping centers. These comparables are all from the same market region as the subject property, so market region 6. We do have all uses included, so we do have some leases for retail and then some sit-down restaurants in place there. And then we do have, so as previously mentioned, several uses. We do have areas that range for the market data from, looks to be around 1,000 square feet at the lower end, up to, it looks to be 15,000, actually 27,000. So we have one at the higher end there. And then we have rents that range from what looks to be, just looking, sorry, I have included quite a few comps here. Looks to be around, I think, $15 at the lower end. And then taking us into the $38 range at the much higher end. So we do have a range there. Okay, and then following that, we do have the income stream for the subject property. So it looks to be about 16 premises that are on the income stream. We have it listed as 60T, and we have areas that range from 1,492, so approximately 1,500 at the lower end, and then going up to 28,152 square feet at the higher end. And then we have rents in place that range from $10.58 at the lower end, up to $36 at the higher end, and these are all modeled rental rates applied. The total potential rent that the model is generating for the subject is $1,973,226. And then if we divide it by the total area we have on file of 112,177 square feet, we do get a blended rate in place of $17.59 per square foot. From there, we do have neighborhood shopping center model parameters applied. So we have a 4% vacancy, a 3% expense, and an $11 shortfall per square foot. And that brings us to a net operating income of $1,788,110. And then from there, we have a modeled cap rate of 6% that's applied, which brings us to our total assessed value of $29,802,000. Following that is an income value summary of the information that was just provided. And then following that is the City of Winnipeg's cap rate information. And then following that is the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then following that and taking us to the end of the presentation is the 2024 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And I believe that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to reiterate, Mr. Pontonia, the valuation on page 15 is modeled top to bottom, correct?
Top to bottom model, that's correct.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Questions asked and answered on cap rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Questions, Ms. Knight?
I have no questions.
Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions, thanks.
And I do not have any questions. Mr. Reimer, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 14, please.
Thank you.
There's two issues under examination for this property. One's rent and one is cap rate. Page 14, we show we're calculating a total potential net market rent of $1,891,536 based on the rents being achieved at the subject. And we believe that those rents are entirely consistent with market indicators as well. On page 15, we've got a chart with the various comparable leases we were able to find of various sizes and ranging from a low of $882 for predictably the largest space up to a high of $30. If we go then, I'm going to be very brief in my comments. If we go to page 17, as you can see, the potential rent, as mentioned, $1,891,536. We're agreeing with the 4% vacancy, 11 shortfall, 3 non-recovered. We are again applying, we're categorizing this as a standard quality location. Certainly on Portage Avenue within the standard quality designation, we're taking in this case a cap rate of 7% to value the property, and that results in a total recommended value this afternoon now of $24,458,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Potnia?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Questions of Mr. Arnell?
No questions.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
All right, just again, catching up a little bit. Getting writer's cramp today.
I apologize if I've gone too fast, Mr. Chairman.
No, we need to go fast today, unfortunately. So I really am very appreciative of that, Mr. Reimer, and to you, Mr. Potnia, because so your final value is 24,458,000, correct?
458, applying the 7% cap rate with our potential net market rent.
All right. Those are my questions. Any summation, gentlemen?
No summation on my part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Reimer?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the panel members and Mr. Pontonia for your time, and have a good rest of the day.
You
Thank
too.
you. It's very much appreciated, gentlemen. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panel members. Thank you, Carrie. Everyone, have a good day.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Oh.